Evening all on Play Chess and YouTube live stream. Okay, hi all. I hope you've had a good week. Can't wait for the over the board season starts. With some trepidation though. I might be playing some IMs and GMs anyway when the over the board season starts. So anyway. Yeah, this week I've got some interesting games from round 8. A selection of 4 interesting games. So let's have a look at them. The first one is Giri in round 8. He had an interesting game against Alexander Feir. So Giri is 2745 and Feir is 2570. It started with e4 from Giri, a French defence, and we have after d4, d5, knight c3, knight f6, classical variation. So it encourages white to close the centre with e5. This is actually played. So another popular move is bishop g5 actually. Let's see in my book. I think bishop g5 is considered the most popular actually, followed by e5. So anyway, we see e5, the knight goes back, black is ready to hit the centre quite hard, so white is starting to reinforce the e5, so f4, c5, knight f3, knight c6, very logical, bishop e3, and now we see a6, so this could mean a quick b5, and in fact it does here. After queen d2 we see b5. White now plays d takes c5. Let's put on like a bit roundabout here actually. Let's add stockfish. So d takes c5, bishop takes c5. Now here's an interesting point. Sometimes, well, when I'm playing this position, I would like routinely block d4 here. In fact, what does Liebook say? I think Liebook's giving bishop takes c5. Actually, knight d4 is quite a rare move. It's either bishop takes c5 or knight e2 usually. This is a rare move that's played here. Bishop d3. So what's going on here? Let's have a look at d4, for instance. Okay, white can just slap that off. Knight takes. And in this position, it looks as though knight e4 and black is at a disadvantage here. Let's see, say knight takes c2. Let's hit the bishop. I think white's doing very well. I don't know what black does here. It's the best move apparently is queen b6. Knight takes, and if queen takes, then there's c3. So this is quite a clever trick basically. It seems that bishop d3 represents a clever trick to promote d4. It seems the engine kind of doesn't think much of d4 here. I don't know how many of you have seen this position before with bishop d3. Have any of you seen this before? Bishop d3. So it's an interesting little trick to bear in mind. So d4, knight takes, and you play knight e4. So you're going to be winning the piece back. Okay, so anyway, black here played queen b6. And the bishop just drops back to f2, where it's protected by the king and the queen. Okay, bishop b7. And here, to keep hold of the bishop, we have castling. Here's the rook, king, all on that bishop. And black takes off on f2, queen takes f2, exchange of queens, rook takes f2. So what do we have here? We have white with a space advantage. Black seems to be doing okay. It's around about equal technically. Knight c5. And it looks as though knight b4 might be useful for black to target that bishop. So we see a3, king e7, connecting the rooks. Knight e2, looking at that d4 square, and that would keep this bishop hemmed in, this classic problem piece in this French defence structure. All these pawns on light squares, this hemmed in bishop here. Knight a4, b3, knight goes back to c5, now this blockade. g6, rook e2, so strengthening control of the centre for a moment. Rook ac8, king f2. Okay, and now black played knight e4 check, and the king actually goes to e3 here. So an iron grip on the position from white, king taking part here in pressurising e4. Black took on d4, knight takes, rook c3, pinning that bishop. Rook drops back, h5. Okay, so around about here, it's again still equal, but I think this is where black starts to get in a little bit of trouble after this next move. So can you see a good plan for white here? What plan would you choose in this position? Would you try and go for something like this later? It looks totally unrealistic. I'm just giving that as a sake of argument. Or would you try and do something on the queen side? Well, white actually played on the queen side now. He's playing b4, so he's fixing this structure, and it looks as though a4 and try and use this a file. So that was the plan chosen here, and we see bishop c8. This might be a key mistake actually. There's an evaluation shift here. Let's just put that back. How does black actually react to a4 though? This looks like a very troublesome position, because these pieces are actually doing quite a good job on pressurizing the queen side. I know the bishop's pinned. Yeah, it looks as though a4 is good. I mean, the engine's suggesting f6 here to take this position, and with a4 here it still seems dangerous. a6 is going to be targeted, but maybe there's something going on here, counterplay. This looks as though it might be tenable for a moment, but yeah, in the game we see this bishop retreat. Apparently this is a bit of a slip, so let's see. The bishop goes there, so we see a4, and it looks as though there's going to be an infiltration now to a7. So the idea from black is reveal bishop d7 to support b5 like that, but it is allowing that infiltration square, and this could represent a dangerous pin. So a takes, and we do see that bishop pinned. Rook b8, and the other rook helps dominate that a file now. Rook b6. Black is very, very passive, it seems, and in fact b5 is pressurized a bit more with this move. So black is very tied down, and with this white threatens actually knight takes b5. That bishop's pinned for the moment, so black reacts with king d8, but now check, and then going in, getting that pin back. And here it looks as though this black is being run out of moves. The rook can't move, the bishop can't move, the knight kind of is stranded as well. It's got no squares. This one hasn't actually got any squares either. It seems black is close to running out of moves here. What does black actually play? In fact, this is actually it looks to be a zugzwang position. Let's just go back here just to see this. Rook 5 to a7 is, we're approaching +6 here. It doesn't seem as though black has got any useful moves at all here. And the move played doesn't really help. G5 was played, which allows f5. And now white is threatening all sorts of things. For example, taking and then coming with this rook over here is pretty deadly, like this. And here, actually, black resigned. Let's have a look. If takes check here, oh blimey, there's actually a really powerful move in this position, including king d4, even king d4. If taking here, rook takes. This is troublesome for black. Black's starting to fall to bits. Also, check here is good. King takes, rook takes d7. Black's falling to bits. So yeah, it seems as though black was kind of zugzwanged here in this position. So an impressive display from Onischuk Giri. Just some slight inaccuracies here after this A-file plan. So maybe it was best to keep the bishop there and just try and break up the centre with f6 and leave that seemingly diabolical weakness behind, this a6 pawn instead. As we saw in this variation, it seems as though, okay, black's going to leave this horrible weakness behind by taking here, but there might be some pressure on the c file. What would white do here? That's probably the lesser evil decision, to try and hold on for a draw maybe. But yeah, we saw this a-file infiltration is very, very useful for white. h4 instead, rook g8, say. Again, kind of zugzwang here. What is black actually doing? He plays g5 here. We just take this, and again zugzwang. These just pieces are all pretty bad. Both rooks are pretty bad. The knight's bad. Black's ending up losing material. Okay, I hope you got something from that first game. Let's have a look at another game. Okay, another interesting game which kind of caught my attention. Eljanov, Pavel Eljanov, 27-23. He was playing white against Valentin Iotov, 2553. Okay, let's have a look. D4, D5, and we see C4, C6. Slav, knight f3, knight f6. Now e3, so quickly protecting c4. And okay, it blocks in the bishop, but it has some great stuff going for it, actually. So a6, knight bd2. And it looks as though with a6, actually, there is this resource rook a7. So here, bishop f5 had that classic b7 problem. I think queen b3, I think I've seen rook a7 in this position, unless I'm imagining it might be a different position. Let's have a quick look at live book here. Rook a7 has been played before, a bit crazy looking. But no, queen b3 wasn't played in this position. Another move is also queen c7 here. Instead, white played knight h4. Bishop e4. Not minding if knight takes e4. This is not minded by black. D takes e4. Apparently this is well, this could be okay. The problem, bishop on c8 is gone. Okay, there's double pawns, but I don't think they're a big deal here for black. So okay, bishop e2, e6, white castled. Bishop d6, g3, Okay, knight bd7, and now white took on e4, knight takes e4, bishop d3. So about equal at the moment, so knight drops back, b3, black castled, bishop b2, so there's a good grip on the position here from white, c5, and things started to get exciting now. These bishops are potentially pointing at black's king, if you look at them. We see after c takes, knight takes, we see d takes c5, opening up that bishop as well. So we've got both bishops pointing at the king here. Knight takes c5, this bishop drops back for a moment. Bishop e7. And then the fun really starts with this next move. Queen h5, so looking to mate black, or queen h7. So black played f5. Now, what would you play here if I gave you 20 seconds starting from now? So who's still awake? White to play, interesting tactic, which you might not really consider. In fact, so white to play, what would you play here? Sorry, f5. Any ideas? Any suggestions? Okay, I'll just show you. Knight takes f5 was played. So what's the point of this? Well, okay, black played e takes f5, and we saw this horrible pin. You might think, well, can black get out of this pin? If knight f6, that hits the queen here, but actually bishop takes f6. So still looking at the queen. Black tries queen d6 here, and now we see b4, so this opens up potentially this diagonal for rook takes d5 if this knight dare move. Dangerous stuff. So white's doing very well here. Knight e6, bishop takes f5. Now threatening things like taking and taking, because we can win the queen if the queen took back on d5. Knight g5, this might not be the best response, but it's difficult. Apparently black's doing very badly here. Rook takes f5 might be actually the best move, apparently. That's pretty grim looking. Okay, so in the game we see knight g5, but here white to play. Can you see what white played in this position? If I give you 20 seconds starting from now, white to play here. So interesting move, interesting game how positions opened up. What would you play here with white? Okay, yeah, Jim Strand, well done. Rook takes d5. Okay, so if queen takes, we've got bishop takes h7, check. So that knight's pinned to the queen. And if here we've got bishop e4 check, so winning that queen. So things have got quite exciting for white after this rook takes d5. Black tried queen takes b4. Okay, bishop d4. White is a pawn up. Solid position. After this, rook takes, and now queen g4. Threatening h4 to get on to g7. Queen c4, h4, queen d5. Looking at bishop. White took on h7. King takes. h3, h takes g. White's emerged material up here. Okay, queen takes g5. Off the check. Queen g6. With this move, black actually resigned. Black's losing another pawn. Say taking here. Queen takes b7 is good enough. And it looks pretty bad actually, because now white can actually consider, I thought white can consider even king g2 potentially, but the engine actually prefers rook c1, maybe over here, maybe this pawn. Let's give black a move, bishop f6, say, it's better for white anyway. So black had enough in this position and resigned with their move. I think they might have been impressed with white's tactical play. So yeah, I thought from what seemed to be a quiet start to this game, the position kind of opened up quite quickly. So when black played c5, these bishops look pretty dangerous. So one to bear in mind, this knight takes f5 idea. If g6, there would have been knight h6 checkmate. If engine's just rook takes f5, we're going to take here. Queen takes. This is apparently good for white as well, for different reasons. That's pretty dangerous. Okay, so yeah, we got an exciting game with this continuation. So yeah, interesting, I thought. Okay, let's have a look at another game. Oh, this is quite a shortish game. Richard Report 2704. He's playing against Alexander Onischuk at 2659. So not too far away from each other in terms of FIDE ratings. But we see b3, quite an unusual start to the game. b3. Nimza Larsen attack. e5. Bishop b2. Okay, so Richard Report against Alexander Onischuk. This is from round 8 of the Olympiad, the 2014 Olympiad. Knight c6, e3, knight f6, bishop b5, and bishop d6 is played. So this is very theoretical so far. Knight a3, And I actually looked this up before, many weeks ago actually, and I think knight a5 is played to try and discourage knight c4. If we look at live book, yeah, knight a5 is actually the move in this position that I was aware of. If knight c4, I think this is meant to be about equal. Knight takes, and it's an interesting game anyway. But black actually played a6, and white inflicted some structural damage and plays knight c4, so ready to take that dark squared bishop. Queen e7. a4 now is played. Black castled. Okay. Now a5 is played, so trying to fix down this structure. And black now plays bishop g4, knight e2, knight d7, white castles. So there's quite good pressure on black's position, and white seems ready to play something like f4 potentially, or first kick the bishop and then do something interesting. We see e4 from black. The bishop is taken now, c takes. Now f3, which actually opens up this g file. If takes, we're going to open up this g file, and you imagine this bishop and this rook here coordinating on g7. Takes bishop h3, rook f2. Okay, knight e5, f4 now. And if knight g4, I think we just play rook f3 in this position, hitting this bishop. Queen h4, I think this is leading to trouble. Just queen e1, and the bishop's in trouble. So, for example, queen h6, just to prove that, queen g3, bishop's definitely in trouble. So basically, the knight went back to g6. White now plays f5, and this white's got an advantage now. Check, knight g3, knight e5, and now this next move, rook a4, switching that rook over there, looking over here, is interesting. I think black might have blundered here. Apparently g6 might actually be okay for black. You don't really want to play a move like g6 with this bishop on that diagonal, and there's no dark square bishop, but apparently this might, I don't know, this might be okay. But yeah, black played bishop g4. So this knight f3 looks attractive. It's extinguished, queen f1. And it looks as though white's tempted to play f6 next move, as though that might be on the cards, or knight e4 even. We see f6. This could be the howler move actually, which makes it really, really bad, the position. In fact, oh dear. Oh dear. f6, yeah. You see this diagonal is a cause of losses, or this diagonal where the king is. These are a cause statistically of a lot of losses at every level of chess. I wonder if you can see the punishment for this f6 here. White to play here, and it's the last move of the game. So white to play and win here. What would you play if I gave you 20 seconds starting from now? Any ideas? Yeah. It's amazing how brutal forcing moves are. Yeah, this f6, if you look at it, has weakened slightly this diagonal. Is that a useful fact to consider? Bishop takes e5. It means the queen, well, whatever way it's taken, we play this check now, hitting 2 pieces. So black had to resign after bishop takes e5. 21 moves, beating a 2-6-5-9 with b3. So you might have thought this is not such a good move, but here you are. 22 moves to beat a 2-6-5-9. So I don't know, maybe knight a5 is really necessary. I mean, as I say, I've prepared this against this IM for Blitz, who plays this system all the time. Discovered knight a5, and I don't know, does white have a nice position here all along? This plan seems to not only fix these pawns, but this rook coming out later, this play is interesting. It looked as though, let's try and play this badly. If I played king h1 here, maybe the bishop just goes back. Can we play it like this? This seems okay as well, actually, just checking out this g file. We could play it like this. But anyway, white played it like with the f4 plan. So going for this f4, f5. I think this carries this. I mean, really, the f4, f5, f6 provoke black to play f6 to weaken that diagonal. So we see this check, and yeah, things are interesting here. If knight g4, rook f4, and we've got 3 pieces, 1, 2, 3, on the knight, h5, knight e4, this is not particularly hot for black. So, okay, queen f1, so howler f6, so apparently, let's say this move instead. White's better here, but it's not immediately winning a piece or anything. Or is it? Rook b4. Let's have a look. Knight e4. The queen goes back. Queen g2. Looks a lot better for white. Threatening to win a piece again. Let's put this bishop here. Ridiculous. This is an engine knight now. d3. Apparently white's doing very well here. If black has to play f6 here, I don't know. We got a game still. We've got a game though. Just about. This bishop looks ridiculous. But maybe it can come back at some point. To h5. Tricky position. f6 just losing instantly. Okay, I've actually just got one more game this week to show you. So let's have a look at this Kramnik against Pons game. So this is in round 8. Vladimir Kramnik playing white against Vallejo Pons Francisco Pons Vanejo. Okay, Vanejo. So d4, knight f6. From c4 from Kramnik, e6, knight f3. d5. This is, I think, Queen's Gambit. Okay, just Queen's Gambit declined. Knight c3 takes, e4, bishop e4. Actually, it seems accepted. What am I being told here by the score sheet? Forget it. I don't know. Bishop b4, bishop g5, c5. I think this is all theory anyway, so we'll just go through this. Very theoretical position. Let's get past the opening moves. Check. The queen's attacked. Okay. Both sides castle, queen e2. Bishop g5, bishop e7, bishop e3. For a moment, you know, white's okay here out of the opening. Looks very nice. a6, the bishop drops back. Bishop e8. Now after f4, this bishop's actually slightly loose on d3 looked at, and black plays knight g4. So we have this transaction, queen takes g4, rook takes. Is it a big deal to lose the light squared bishop there? Actually, the engine doesn't think so, but instead of f4, okay, what does white play? Say h3. Then we've got knight h5. Maybe, I don't know. Different game. So anyway, f4, knight g4, and it's clear that this bishop is dropping off. Can't afford to move this. I think it'll be a disaster. Check. It looks too good for black. So queen takes g4, rook takes d3, bishop f2, queen d8. Now e5, it looks quite tempting to just play like this into f6 with the queen here. It looks quite dangerous. Knight b4, knight c5, which lets the rook go to the second rank, actually, knight c5. This might not have been actually the best move. This rook here could be challenged in this position with rook fd1. And apparently white's okay here, although black's got the bishop here. White's okay. This position looks okay. Anyway, so Vladimir is playing this knight c5, encouraging the rook to be on the seventh, his seventh, to potentially mop up these pawns and eyes king. So that's a danger. But on the other hand, this looks very, very tempting. Rook takes b2, one pawn sack, but it helps white control this d file now, so it looks quite scary. Knight d5, and we see this check now. This is taken. E takes. Rest of the mate. Now here, if queen takes f6, bishop d4, and if queen g6, well, we're actually going to just take the rook after. We just take here, and we're going to take the rook. So black has to play g6, and it looks as though this is mating time potentially on g7. But how is that managed? If queen here immediately, black can actually just take this. There, takes, bishop d4, taking this, bishop takes f6. This is actually okay for black apparently, believe it or not. Piece down. It's got a lot of pawns for it. So that's interesting anyway. So queen h4 wasn't played. Bishop d4 was played. looking at the rook and protecting the pawn a bit more. Rook takes a2, mopping up another pawn, quite cheeky. So black has been very, very cheeky in this game so far. There's this seemingly very dangerous, potentially fatal fawn pawn on f6. So we just need to mate black on g7 surely. We see queen h4. Looking at this classic mate idea. Very dangerous. Because in that position, just say for sake of argument, rook c8. Just say, you know, here I think queen h6. Well, there might be knight takes f6. Actually, here knight takes. Apparently, if takes, check. Okay, it can be dangerous like this. All right, so black played bishop c6. So he's always got now queen f8 to queen h6. If queen h6, even better is just to take here, and apparently this is okay as well for black. So we can't quite do that here, queen h6, although it might be tempting. That's reinforced for a moment. And we see rook e2. This rook's been quite annoying. And it looks as though, is this knight able to go here for mating like this? Well, let's have a look. Knight g5. Knight takes f6 apparently is playable. If takes. This apparently is okay for black. And well, we're looking at g2. Black's actually massively better. Okay, so sorry. Instead of g6, Sam, there's a question on stream. Sorry, instead of g6, knight takes f6. Let's just rewind that. So earlier, this is quite some time ago. Instead of knight takes f6. Rook takes, knight takes. Well, we just take this rook, yeah. Okay, so that doesn't work out very well. Okay, so I think g6 had to be played. Okay, so we got this position. Oh dear, I've just ruined it. Oh! Okay. Can you see why this next move, which you might have seen, oh no, was played? So black to play, what would you play here? Maybe I accidentally put that move in that you might have just seen there. So maybe it's no good. Maybe I'm bluffing. So there's all sorts of moves for black here, surely. Okay, there's queen f8. There's crazy stuff. Is there crazy stuff here? So what would you play here with black? All sorts of crazy options for black. What would you play here with black if I give you 20 seconds starting from now? Black to play, choose from all these crazy options. Rook g2, knight f4, queen f8. What would you do here with black? Any ideas? Was I bluffing you with what you might have seen originally? I think it's a little bit amazing. It's amazing how fast, actually, in chess. I'm going to make an observation here, which you might appreciate in a lot of games. It's amazing how fast the centre is. These central squares. How fast you can use the centre sometimes to attack squares in all directions. All directions from the centre. I noticed that in one of my blitz games, actually, when I had this central queen move all of a sudden, and I was hitting this rook over there. It seems, you know, that central bouncing effect is the basis for some amazing tactical concepts which we wouldn't normally appreciate at all. How fast we can bounce off the centre and hit the corners of the board very, very quickly. Very, very quickly. It's just an observation I've made. Just as a generalisation, they say the central control is important, but yeah, the speed at which you can make use of central squares to get to any part of, you know, boards on the corners is very, very quick. And here, I thought this was quite a mega tactic, actually. So it wasn't an accident. It was knight takes f4. Knight takes f4. But you might think, well, what's the reason for this? I'll tell you, it's not queen takes f4, rook takes g2. If rook takes g2 here, really, white doesn't play this, obviously, because then rook takes g3, end of game, check. No, but white with king f1, is still doing badly, actually. It's still doing badly here, apparently. Oh my word. With rook takes h2, black is still, even though black's a piece down, there's still some very powerful resources. But even stronger than this, in this position, even stronger apparently than rook takes g2, is this queen d5. And all of a sudden, look, this central square is hitting g2 much more effectively. It facilitates, you know, bishop b5 checks, you know, if taking the queen's protecting the rook, and then we've got bishop b5 checks if king f1. So that's why it's extremely dangerous, this position for white, for Vladimir Kramnik. But it's just amazing to think, you know, the sense of how quick it, you know, you can get pieces attacking like this. So what does white actually play here? White's in big trouble. Vladimir Kramnik played knight e4, and now after queen takes, you know, he's several pawns down. It hasn't been his Olympiad this year, and this is not one of the greatest positions now with white to have. He's 3 pawns down. Yes, it's opposite coloured bishops, but also, I mean, this pawn is going to be engulfed as well. A few more moves were played. Bishop b6, g5, rook d2, h6. So the king is getting ready to cozy up to the pawn here. And also, of course, we've got this lovely pass pawn over here as well. And here, I think Vladimir Kramnik, he had enough of this position after rook f4. I think black might be just at leisure playing, well, okay, bishop d5 and just torturing white for a long time more. He's 3 pawns up. There's no point in playing this on. So white resigned here. So I thought that was something strange about this game. That white seems to be getting this really vicious attack. And it just seemed almost like a technicality that the rook on the 7th wasn't doing too much damage. If we look at this rook, the damage it did later, it was, I mean, there was an opportunity to kick it away. round about here, we could have challenged this rook, rook here in hindsight, or this one, and apparently the engine thinks that was about equal. So we get this rook on the 7th. But yeah, it's, you know, these pawns have been sacked to get this dominating looking attack position. Looks extremely dangerous. Extremely dangerous. I mean, on the verge of mating black on the dark squares, we could say. I mean, would you take white here? I mean, how many of you would take black in this position? I mean, seriously, would you take black from this position? Apparently, you know, black is technically better. I thought that was quite surprising. It's just a strange one to me. This game, it's just strange. So G2 is a problem as well as G7. And anytime we go all in with Queen H6, there's possibilities. I mean, there's options for black. Either Queen F8 or Knight takes F6, apparently. So we can't do that. So it was reinforced a little bit. And there's this annoying move. So if I don't know, if Knight G5, it's just Knight takes F6 is just, it's not good enough just to win this pawn here. As we saw, this position is lost. You know, this pressure on the 7th here. There's nothing going on there. So yes, but that is surprising that the centre here, you know, we get access to G2 quite quickly with the queen so rapidly via D5. So Knight takes F4 is a killer blow, really. The engine loves this move. Anything else is not so good. This is approaching +3. Knight takes F4. If Knight takes here, this is another option. Knight takes check. Here. Knight takes C1. And this doesn't look pretty. Let's have a go. Rook takes C1. H5 is suggested by the engine. H5. I think black's going to play. It looks tempting just to play to D5, but the engine's giving Queen D6 for some reason. Let's go with this. Queen G5. Queen takes D4. So we can't do that. Pardon me. So what does white do here? Queen F4. We can start moving this pawn. 3 pawns up again. We're 3 pawns up. Any Queen H6, we just play this. Okay, I think that's it for this week. I hope you got some interest out of these games. Okay, have a good week. See you next week. Comments or questions on YouTube. Thanks very much.